Hey there YouTube, it's your boy Lipid out here with another YouTube video. Today we got Elden Ring's lore explained. This is by VaatiVidya, and he is, bro, he is the Dark Souls lore keeper. Like he knows probably every nook and cranny of the story of all the Dark Souls games. So I wouldn't be surprised he just gets an Elden Ring and just wants to know the entire story. So I mean, yeah, it's a relatively new game, and people are still trying to figure out a lot of things about the game. So yeah, have I played Elden Ring? No. Fun fact, I can't. My system just doesn't support it. Just sad days. Yeah, without further ado, let's just get right into the video, shall we? And yeah.
Our story doesn't begin in the lands between.
Okay.
It begins in the cosmos, far away, with an outer god called the Greater Will. There are a lot of outer gods mentioned in Elden Ring. You can think of these kind of like the Great Ones of Bloodborne. They're distant beings, they're all-powerful, and they're quite unknowable by design. But many of these outer gods want to make their presence felt in the world. The Greater Will, maybe most of all. To this end, it sent a golden star hurtling towards the lands between. The Elden Star's incantation tells us that this golden star was bearing a beast, an Elden beast. The Elden Remembrance calls it a vassal beast of the Greater Will. If you didn't know, a vassal is someone who holds land on behalf of their overlord. Obviously, this is fitting.
I'm sorry, bro. We're less than a minute into the video, and I think you lost me. Wait, I'm sorry. What? So there are these gods in the lands beyond space that just want their influence felt. So there are like 9 of them, and one of them sent like a hurtling star with the Elden Beast to our planet. Got you. Alright, okay, alright.
In this case, because the Elden Beast occupied the lands between.
To be fair, yes, I haven't played the games, but I've seen enough playthroughs to like kind of have a gist of what the story is. Kind of like at least an idea.
On behalf of the Greater Will, and was a living incarnation of the concept of order. As such, this beast would later become the Elden Ring. The Elden Ring itself is made...
Wait, the beast becomes the Elden Ring?
Made up of runes of power, some great, some small,
right,
that together represent a sort of logic for the world to follow. Thus, the Elden Ring represents order. The true nature of this order is a subject of constant debate and research undergone by fundamentalists. But 2 of the key fundamentals are the laws of causality and regression. You can think of the law of causality as cause and effect, where actions have consequences, and those consequences are new causes that branch out into infinity. These are the relationships between things. Then there's the law of regression that states that all things eternally yearn to converge and return to their roots. Fittingly, then, the Elden Ring is housed within the Erdtree, which towers over the lands between. But it's very important to stress that life in the lands between did not begin with the Erdtree, the Elden Ring, or the Elden Beast. No, the lands between were occupied well before the Greater Will came. There were other beings here. There were other factions here. There were other gods here. And there was even another great tree here before the Erdtree. And this is where a huge twist regarding the Erdtree comes in.
Oh wait, so this entire time, there was like, so this world was just functioning by itself until this magical tree just came along and just stood there. Alright, okay.
So, there are incantations in the game called aspects of the Crucible. According to their descriptions, these are manifestations of the Erdtree's primal vital energies. And I quote, "They are an aspect of the primordial crucible where all life was once blended together." But how could all life be blended together in the Erdtree if the Erdtree appeared after life existed? Well, there can only be one answer, right? That the Erdtree is a parasite, and it took over a tree that existed here before. This ancient tree was called the Great Tree. So the Great Tree was almost certainly the location of this primordial crucible, and it must have been a very powerful primordial force for the Greater Will to have commandeered. It might even be the reason the lands between is important to the Greater Will in the first place. It also explains why spells and enemies related to the Great Tree's crucible would eventually be looked down upon. For example, the knot talisman is fashioned from a knotted vestige of the Crucible. and it was considered a signifier of the divine in ancient times, but is now increasingly disdained as an impurity as civilization has advanced. Enemies related to the Crucible are the Omen, the Misbegotten, and the Crucible Knights, and all three of them would be shunned, enslaved, or imprisoned. Those who speak for the Erdtree,
like the fell Omen,
don't want you to know its roots, so to speak. According to the spell, protection of the Erdtree, in the beginning everything was in opposition to the Erdtree, but through countless victories in war, it became the embodiment of order.
In Marika's own words, the Erdtree governs all. The choice is thine. Become one with the order, or divest thyself of it, to wallow at the fringes, a powerless upstart.
But the Greater Will needed more than a big tree. It needed loyal agents in the lands between. To this end, it has
they're just fingers, right? Yeah.
Who are its envoys. The Two Fingers heirloom has a weird picture of them, but it reads, "Of course, fingers cannot speak, yet these are eloquent. Persistently they wriggle, spelling out mysteries in the air. Thus did we gain the words of our faith." These words are interpreted by the finger readers. These are the undying old crones that you would have found throughout the lands between.
Okay.
They pass down
they
the
keep
wisdom
murmuring
of
about
the two
fingers.
fingers,
Fine. Yeah.
or at least they used to.
Your fingers, please, your fingers.
Creepy, ain't it?
I can read them.
Most of them appear to have lost their purpose, and they're desperate to read your fingers and tell you annoying riddles, since their two fingers are likely dead. And yes, of course, there are multiple sets of two fingers. You would have found their corpses on the tops of the divine towers. Atop these towers, you loot the fingers in order to activate the true power of a great rune. Specifically, though, you are giving benediction back to your great rune. You're taking a blessing back from the two dead fingers, essentially. This is just one of many blessings that the two fingers can bestow, and my point is kind of that the two fingers clearly have more than just influence. They have real power on some level. The Greater Will needs these powerful envoys and agents because, while it's obviously incredibly powerful, it does seem limited by a few things. First is space. The Greater Will didn't come to the lands between itself, it sent an elden beast to do its bidding instead. Second is time. There is a moment later in the game where your pair of two fingers go still because they're forced to commune with the Greater Will for guidance.
When they are finished, the fingers will again offer their guidance. But thousands, if not tens of thousands, of moons must first pass. No matter for me. But you, how will you ever manage to wait?
So the Greater Will needs a physical manifestation of order. It needs envoys to convey its will.
Hold on, wait. So there's like 9 fucking goddesses out there in space. So there's something called the Greater Will that sends out some kind of beast to your world or the lands in between, and then also has these envoys, which are these two fingers, which then kind of are their communicators. They're like walkie-talkies, kind of, and they just tell you what the Greater Will wants you to know, and also exhibits influence for the Greater Will. Okay.
But
that's
what it also needs
interesting,
is
sure.
a god. Introducing Marika the Eternal. I have this utterly enormous mind map of Elden Ring's lore, and there's a reason.
Holy shit!
There's a reason she's at.
How on earth does Marika connect to the Erdtree? Hold on. Storm lands. Okay.
Enormous mind map
how does
of
one connect to it? Okay.
Elden Ring's lore.
Marika the Anointed. Okay.
The
Golden Order. Okay, so this is pretty much connects to everything. Okay, all
There's
right.
a reason she's at the center. She's
that's pretty
essentially
detailed,
the equivalent
I suppose,
of Gwyn from Dark Souls, except
yeah.
Unlike Gwyn, Marika didn't just crawl out of the dark and find power. To an extent, it seems like she earned it. We don't know much about her origins, except that she is of the Numen race, which is actually an origin that you can choose in the character selection screen. Numen come from outside the lands between, and are supposed descendants of denizens of another world, long-lived but seldom born. At some point, Marika was chosen as an Empyrean. What is an Empyrean? Well, an Empyrean is a being chosen by the Fingers as a candidate for godhood. As an Empyrean, Marika received the aid of a shadow to do her bidding. So what is a shadow? Well, it's a wolf, shadowbound to its Empyrean by the two Fingers.
Wait, Malekith was... Wait, if Malekith was Marika's Empyrean, then from what I recall from the fight with Malekith, spoiler alert, you do have, I mean, obviously spoiler alert, but once you beat his phase 1, he what does he say? Like, oh death, become my blade once more, and then just yeets himself at you. And then when you beat him, the game tells you the rune of death is unbound. But the runes are from the Elden Ring, right? So does Marika give him the rune?
Luna Princess Rani is another example of an Empyrean with a shadowbound beast.
Right, yeah, okay, we know this. But he goes in... I guess spoiler alerts for the entire video. He goes insane,
creatures
right?
Are the Empyrean's
and
very
tries to
own
kill you.
shadow. They are completely loyal to their needs and, by definition, incapable of treachery. Marika's shadow...
Oh! Okay, wait, so they can't betray the owner. Okay, that makes sense. Okay.
was a beast called Malekith.
Malekith, right.
Every Empyrean uses their shadow in different ways, but Marika's sole need of her shadow was as a vessel to lock away destined death.
Right!
So what is destined death? Well, according to Enya, it's the rune of death.
The rune of death goes by two names.
Yeah, I mean, I think you can... I kind of figured that because, like, even in the battle, he says, like, once you beat him, why covet destined death? And then immediately after that, the cutscene happens where you try reaching out to grab it and you don't, and then it just explodes, and then the game tells you, oh, by the way, the rune of death has been unbound. Okay, yeah.
The other...
It kind of gives you a gist of it, yeah, 100%.
Death.
Yeah.
We mentioned earlier
that
the Elden Ring.
You put your hand out to get it, and you don't.
And at some point, maybe when she was chosen as a god, Marika plucked the rune of death from the Elden Ring. She gave the rune of death to Malekith, a totally loyal shadow, who bore a black blade imbued with this rune. It's kind of genius, really. In a single act, she removed the concept of death from the lands between, while also commanding total control of death through her shadow, who could deliver it.
Why would you... But that still doesn't make sense. Why would you remove the concept of death from the lands between?
It's her whim.
Why would you do that?
Now, some of you might be asking, if death is removed from the lands between, how come I can kill this dog? First off, shame on you. Second, from a lore point of view, that dog isn't really dead. It's simply in the process of its spirit, or its soul, returning to the Erdtree. Catacomb dungeons, for example, are specifically constructed near the roots of the Great Tree for this reason, so that the Erdtree can reabsorb their ashes back into it. This process replaced the concept of a death that you were destined to have. But this random spirit outside of a catacomb dungeon says it best. As another example of this theory, when you kill a major boss, you receive a remembrance of them. These are spirits, and they are hewn into the Erdtree. In this way, thanks to the Erdtree's grace, their spirits are immortalized, in a sense. This new form of death also explains what's happening when you summon spirits.
From ash and return to the Erdtree.
However, some spirits never return to the Erdtree, and they rise within death as corpses or skeletons instead.
Okay, yeah, makes sense.
So this was the new order, and it's important to stress that it was in this moment, when the rune of death was removed, when destined death was taken, this is when order became the Golden Order.
The forbidden shadow plucked from the Golden Order upon its creation.
Specifically, this was Marika's Golden Order. So not only did she become a god and a vessel for the Elden Ring, she became renowned
this is
as
in-depth.
Marika the Eternal
Right.
for her removal of Destined Death. It
Oh!
was a huge part of her character and her reign as well. However,
Marika the Eternal.
Marika had more than just death to conquer. She had wars to fight, as the world was occupied by many forces.
Right, you have the dragons that you have to beat, then you have the fire giants, which are like those guys. The guy with the eye in the middle and with like the huge pot that he tries banging you with. You have the magicians, the people who then like the weird magecraft stuff. You fight one of the queens who then lets you like restack your character. But yeah, I think those are three main ones. I think.
Order. There was war with the Stormlord, who
I've no
likely
idea.
ruled over Stormvale. And there was a war with the giants, who
Right.
were masters of a flame that could burn the Erdtree. There was war with the ancient dragons, who incidentally had stones that could twist time and thus slay a god.
Oh, okay, so that's what that level was about. Okay, so, I mean, I'd say for context, like, to get to this boss, again, spoiler alert, you do have to lay down in front of a rotating tornado in the middle of the apocalypse, and the tornado slowly comes to a halt and then goes in reverse, and then you get to go into the boss fight. So I think that's what this is about.
And finally, there was war brewing with the Carrion royalty, who had previously
These guys are
obeyed
the
laws
Magecraft,
which
right?
contravened the Golden Order. Thus,
I think.
sort of
Yeah,
similar
this is the
to how the
tornado
Greater
part. Yeah,
Will
100%.
needed an Empyrean to enforce its will, Marika herself needed someone to wage war. So, there was to be a husband, a consort, an Elden Lord. The man chosen was Horalu.
Horalu. Oh! Okay, so that makes sense. So he's the first
A
Elden
ferocious
Lord
warrior who became known as the Lord of the Battlefield. His crown
Okay.
was warranted with strength, and while it was for this strength that Marika married him,
warranted with strength. I kind of see the irony in that, because at least from what I remember from every fight I've seen, it's if you beat him, he says a crown, your strength befits a crown, right?
he was also required to take a vow to conduct himself as a lord. To suppress the ceaseless lust for battle that raged within, Horalu took the beast regent Sarosh upon his back. You'll notice this is another example of a beast being given for the purpose of serving order.
Okay.
Thus, in this moment, he went from being Horalu, warrior, to Godfrey, the first Elden Lord, consort to Queen Marika,
Right,
and
okay.
a certified demigod.
Okay, so Godfrey was the first consort, and then when he removes the beast, which is his cutscene for Phase 2, he becomes Horalu, the one who just wants
Godfrey
to go
and
to battle.
Marika had
Right.
3 demigod children together. There was Godwyn the Golden,
Okay.
who you saw being killed in the opening trailer.
Okay.
And there were also the reviled Omen twins, Morgoth, who guards the Erdtree,
Right.
and Mohg, who became Lord of Blood.
Yeah.
You might think that Godric was another demigod child, but he actually wasn't. Instead, he was probably descended from Godwyn. Anyway, we'll talk about the
Interesting,
demigods
okay.
more in detail in another video, so
Yeah, that's
subscribe
cool,
for that.
I guess. Yeah, probably.
But for now, just know that Godfrey and his offspring were the first demigods, henceforth known as the Golden Lineage. In his
Okay,
wars, Godfrey
okay,
led
that's
his
pretty-
16 Crucible Knights into battle, who were named so for they fought with the primordial powers of the Erdtree.
Okay.
Their incantations were aspects of the Crucible itself, and
okay.
they likely fought giants, dragons, the Stormlord, and more to usher in their age, the age of the Erdtree.
In Marika's own words, "Hark, brave warriors. Hark, my Lord Godfrey. We commend your deeds. Guidance hath delivered ye through each ordeal to the place ye stand. Put the giants to the sword and confine the flame atop the mount. Let a new epoch begin, an epoch glistening with life. Brandish the Elden Ring for the age of the Erdtree."
The Erdtree would go on to be largely seen as a blessing for all of those in the lands between, especially those close to it in Leyndell, the capital city of the Erdtree. The tree bestowed blessings. For example, the dew that dropped from its branches were like jewels. It loomed overhead as a constant reminder of order, and its roots reached far and wide, relieving many of the burden of death. In fact, Erdtree burial was one of the highest honors a hero could receive. One by one, the previous factions of the world fell, The giants were put to the sword, and
Right.
their fell god was killed by Marika herself.
Oh,
the ancient
okay.
dragons broke down the walls of Leyndell, but met fierce retaliation. However, I think the House of the Erdtree encountered the most trouble against the land to their southwest, Liurnia. Here, the House of the Moon repelled their offensives time and time again. And I
House
mean
of-
that literally, because there was not just one, but two wars fought here, and in both of these, there was no victory for the Golden, nor for the Moon. And I suspect it was probably because of these lobsters. These damn things can snipe you from like a mile away, and it's bullshit. Actually,
Every as a you know, if you've played some of the Dark Souls games, you'll know. You'll know. Those crabs are annoying, to say the least.
it was probably because of
I
the
feel you
Carrion
on that.
Knights,
That's fine.
according to their weapons, were able to wield sorcerous battle skills, and despite numbering fewer than 20, this power made them a match for even the champions of gold in battle.
To be fair, in the game, if you watch people play the mage classes, more often than not, you'll notice like every single build on the mage side is broken. I would go so far as to say like, holy shit, it's not even close. Like, I understand the melee combat, you have your samurai combat, and then there's magecraft, which is just broken. So I can see why that would seem
These
legit.
enchanted knights were anointed
And this
by the
battle
Lunar
is
Queen,
annoying.
young astrologer
I haven't played
who
the game, and I
went
can
on
still
to establish
feel
the
my
House of
BP rising
Caria
because
as
of this fight.
royalty in this land.
Right.
With her bewitching lunar magic, she
And
won over the
annoying,
Academy
though,
of
isn't it?
Raya Lucaria, where glintstone sorcery was studied,
Right.
and united. The Carian royal family and the learned scholars of Raya Lucaria defended their home from the golden aggressors.
Yeah.
At the head of this great golden army was Radagon.
Lord Radagon was a great champion, possessed of flowing red locks. He came to these lands at the head of a great golden host. When he met Lady Renalla in possessed of flowing red locks, he came to these lands.
Red hair. Isn't he the final boss in the game? Yeah, if I'm not wrong, like, isn't it a Radagon of the Golden Order or something? And then he then dies and then becomes, like, the Elden Beast picks him up
At the head
for phase
of a
2,
great
right?
golden host. When he met Lady Renalla in battle.
These two champions clashed, fell in love, and joined their houses.
Oh,
Radagon once cleansed himself with celestial dew, repented his territorial aggressions, and swore his love to Renalla. The order of the Erdtree and the fate of the moon were conjoined, and
Okay.
all the wounds of war forgiven.
You might think it strange that the Greater Will would permit this union, but it's not too odd, all things considered. As with most From Software games, sorcery and faith are just two sides of the same coin. and
Right.
Both of these powers stem from the cosmos. Radagon and Renalla were known to have 3 children together. Lunar Princess Rani,
Right.
who inherited her mother's propensity for lunar magic. Radahn, who took after his father Radagon and would go on to master gravitational magic. And Rykard, who pioneered new hex sorceries and would go on to feed himself to a great serpent. It
interesting.
follows
Okay.
that at some point after this, Marika began to harbor doubts. Doubts about the Golden Order, that she had had a hand in creating.
In Marika's own words, I declare mine intent to search the depths of the Golden Order through understanding of the proper way. Our faith, our grace is increased. Those blissful early days of blind belief are long past. My comrades, why must ye falter?
And it's at this point that we should talk about Marika's
Okay, so she
motivations.
was having doubts.
Character.
Okay.
This is surely going to be one of those huge points of debate in the coming years, but for now, my working theory is that she wanted to discover the truth behind order and the truth behind the greater will, and she believed that bonds had to be broken so that they could be better understood. She
Okay.
believed that there was great meaning to be found in hardship.
Queen
Oh,
Marika has
right,
high
fine.
hopes for us, that we continue to struggle unto eternity.
For Lord Godfrey, his struggle ended at the end of his campaigns. According to his armor, he led the war against the giants, faced the Storm Lord alone, and then there came a moment when his last worthy enemy fell, and it was then, as the story is told, that the hue of Lord Godfrey's eyes faded. In truth, he was robbed of his grace. Then Marika sent him away.
My lord, and thy warriors, I divest each of thee of thy grace. With thine eyes dimmed, ye will be driven from the lands between. Ye will wage war in a land afar, where ye will live and die.
This became known as the Long March of the Tarnished.
Okay, wait. So her understanding was she wanted to know exactly what the Greater Will wanted. So she had to break bonds to figure out what it was that that thing was trying to get. So she just broke it off with said consort, and then just sent him off after beating the last
Godfrey
thing
and
he
his
needed to beat.
tarnished
So I was like, okay,
descendants
all
walked
right.
away from the lands between. But Queen Marika absolutely had a plan here, that Lord Godfrey and his descendants would one day return stronger, having struggled outside of grace.
Then, after thy death, I will give back what I once claimed, return to the lands between, wage war, and brandish the Elden Ring, grow strong in the face of death. Warriors of my lord, Lord Godfrey.
Soon after, she found a new husband. Either that or a new husband was found for her.
Okay.
When Godfrey, first Elden Lord, was hounded from the lands between, Radagon left Renalla to return to the Erdtree capital, becoming Queen Marika's second husband and king consort, taking the title of Second Elden Lord. The mystery endures to this day as to why Lord Radagon would cast Lady Renalla aside, and moreover, why a mere champion would be chosen for the seat of Elden Lord.
That's
Whatever the case,
okay.
As a part of this union, Radagon's prior 3 children...
So it was Radagon. So Radagon is still the final boss.
Became demigod stepchildren, granted grace thanks to their new family tree. Renalla was broken by this, and so was her country, Liurnia. The Queen's set reads, when Renalla, head of both the Academy of Raya Lucaria and the Carian royal family, lost her husband Radagon, her heart went along with him, and then those at the Academy realized that Renalla was no champion after all. In the wake of Radagon's betrayal and Renalla's poor judgment, Liurnia struggled with civil war, with the Academy of Raya Lucaria on one side and the Carian royals on the other. And it's here, during the age of the Erdtree, that Lunar Princess Rani, daughter of Renalla and Radagon, stole a fragment of the Rune of Death.
It happened during the
Rune of Death.
It happened during the golden age of the Erdtree.
I think I get this. I think I get this part. Okay, wait. So if I'm not mistaken, when you fight Malekith, he does say, "I will not have it stolen from me again." I think this is what they're referencing to. Okay, all right. So Rani steals a fragment of the Rune of Death. All right,
Long
fine, but
before
why?
the shattering of the Elden Ring, someone stole a fragment of the Rune of Death from Malekith, the Black Blade.
As mentioned previously, Malekith was Marika's shadow, and he had sealed Destined death in a black blade. Then a fragment, only a fragment, of this Rune of Death was stolen. And once this happened, Malekith went a step further in protecting
Right, it explains sense why he then puts it...
the blade within his own flesh, such that none might rob death ever again. It was too late, however. This fragment of the Rune of Death was used immediately, that night, to kill a demigod, Marika's own son, Godwyn the Golden.
That was the first recorded death of a demigod in all history, and it became the catalyst. Soon, the Elden Ring was smashed, and thus sprang forth the war known as the Shattering.
Now, there is a lot of really credible evidence that Marika was behind this plot to have a fragment of the Rune of Death stolen.
What?
There's also a ton of evidence that Marika is behind the entirety of your Tarnished quest.
Oh!
But we'll talk about that in another video.
Wait,
For
no.
now,
You're telling me she orchestrated the entire thing, knowing that she's going to be at the end of the blade. Bro, this is some Eisen level shit, bro, from Bleach. Wait, what?
All you really need to know, in terms of the timeline at least, is this. After the marriage of Marika and Radagon, and after a fragment of the Rune of Death was stolen, Marika went on to shatter the Elden Ring, and Radagon attempted to repair it.
Okay.
To no avail. The Elden Ring had been broken into runes, some great and some small.
Okay.
You know, it's said that Lord Radagon harbored a secret. A famed sculptor of the Erdtree capital was once summoned to render Lord Radagon's likeness in giant stature, when he glimpsed the skeleton in Radagon's closet. And as such, it's said the great statue harbors his secret too.
Of course, the huge twist in Elden Ring is that Radagon is Marika.
What? Nani?
Depending on what you believe, he became her, for she knew it was going to happen.
In Marika's own words.
Wait, hold on, wait. Didn't Radagon and Marika have children? Oh my god, it's Sweet Home Alabama. Wait, this is it, wait, actually, wait, no, is it incest if you tap yourself? Hold on, even then. So you're telling me if Marika and Radagon are the same person, then Marika created a clone or something that's Radagon, which then went on to marry Renalla, which he, playing the long game. Marika then sends off her husband after or a consort after the war and stuff, and then recalls Radagon back to become the second Elden Lord, so they have children. And then she orchestrates Rani to steal a fragment of death, which is then used to kill Godwyn, the gold, which then gives her a reason to be pissed off and then break the Elden Ring, and using her second clone Radagon to rebuild the Elden Ring, but she can't do that, which then puts you on the path to her, to become the next Elden Lord. All for the sake of why exactly?
Words.
What does she get out of this?
Leal Hound of the Golden
What's
Order.
the point?
Thou art yet to become me. Thou art yet to become a god. Let us be shattered, both. Mine other self.
You can tell when from...
This makes sense, I think, because if you... now that he says it, I think it makes sense, things are starting to fall into place. It's like when you go into that boss battle room and you see her floating on, the crescent thing, and then you see her, she's clearly feminine. She's got things there. She's got the personalities. But then when she falls, and then her hair her hair turns red, she becomes a he, and then Radagon fights you. So I mean, okay, I guess the inference is
keeping something.
I think it's solid. I think it makes sense.
And of everything in Elden Ring's lore, this will also go on to be one of the biggest unknowns as we move forward. For example, the wording "Thou art yet to become me" reinforces that Marika and Radagon were two separate entities.
Right, so it's not exactly the same. Okay, it's not the same as saying Radagon and Marika are the same person, but rather Marika was similar enough. Radagon was similar enough that Marika could influence him?
Before the shattering. However,
or borrow
in
his
contrast,
body or something?
There is also evidence that Radagon was always part of Marika.
Yeah.
For example, Enya says that
the demigods are each and all the direct offspring of Queen Marika.
But how can this be if Radagon married Renalla and had those demigod children?
Right.
The only way that makes sense is if Radagon was always Marika and he just went over there to seduce Renalla long ago.
Right.
I'll present more concrete theories in the future, but on this matter, the most important thing is, what do you think? While you can figure out a ton of Elden Ring's story, not all of it is open to interpretation.
Right.
Certain things are, and this is one of them. And
His boss battle is cool, though. Cool as all hell.
Story special.
This is really insane.
At any rate, the union of Radagon and Marika seems to be a union of two fundamental opposing laws of the Golden Order. We mentioned these laws earlier, actually. There's the law of causality, and Marika is an agent of cause and effect. And there's the law of regression, as Radagon is a character who aspires to be complete and
so it's the duality
together. So I have a theory
like two
that
sides of the same
these
coin.
two beings that represent these concepts together would have corrected Marika's deviance. But even so, she was imprisoned in the Erdtree for the crime of the Shattering.
Marika's trespass demanded a heavy sentence. But even in shackles, she remains a god and the vision's vessel.
The conjoined Radagon and Marika even had two demigod children of their own, Mikola
and Liurnia.
These two children
were cursed.
afflicted.
Yeah, they
Mikola
were cursed.
was cursed with eternal childhood.
And Liurnia was cursed with the rot, scarlet rot.
Horrific rot within.
Scarlet rot, right? Yeah.
Even so, these two children were both chosen as Empyreans. They were immensely sacred beings and eligible to inherit godhood from the Greater Will. Perhaps the Greater Will was just desperate to find a worthy successor, and indeed in the Shattering War to come, many would try to claim the shards of the Elden Ring, and they would try to take the throne, including, of course, the Tarnished, who returned from their long march at long last, which we'll talk about in the next main lore video.
So
I should probably also mention here that if you become a patron, you'll see upcoming lore videos early, as you know, it took me ages to commit these names and the relationships they had with other characters to memory, so I hope you guys are doing alright. One thing that helped me a lot was that we designed an enormous mind map with...
This is insane, though. The amount of work that must have gone into this.
All of its item descriptions, all of its dialogues, all of the relationships between characters that we can think of. We added all of this together, and it helped a ton in learning about the story and visualizing it all. And one day, I will make this asset available to you all, because I think... After doing it, I think
I'd be really interested
in
to see
way to piece together the story, and I think giving you guys this asset eventually will make that accessible for people. I actually believe this might be the best story that From Software have ever put together.
Yeah, this is insane.
I think not only are there so many amazing items.
Shout out to George R.R. Martin.
So many of them are impactful. There are so many moments where you piece together the story and have like a eureka moment, and I'm enjoying it so much. But now I'm going to go and play the game a little bit, because I've been editing this video for too long.
Dude, I really want to play this game. Right now I feel like I just don't have the compute power to do it, so I'm going to save this for a later time. But that's it for the video. This has been an unusually long video, I think, so hope you guys enjoyed the video. Like, comment, subscribe. I'll catch you guys in the next one. But I will say this story is phenomenal. Like, bro, this is insane. And there's so much left to interpretation, so there's still a lot that we can all figure out from this. So, yeah. That's about it. Catch you beautiful bastards in the next one, and yeah, peace. I'll be doing a lot more reaction to VaatiVidya's videos, so I'm looking forward to it though. Looking forward to it. Sick.